I want to talk in this segment about the death of Thomas More and the writings of Thomas More when he was locked up in the Tower of London awaiting his execution. Now, who is Thomas More? Well, he's a saint. He was the Chancellor of England, a very close friend of the King, Henry VIII. Henry VIII demanded of Thomas More that he make a public statement and sign a statement approving his marriage, his second marriage, to Anne Boleyn. Thomas More refused and was sentenced to death in a kind of trumped-up trial. By the way, the story of Thomas More is the basis for one of the greatest, if not the greatest, Hollywood film ever made, called A Man for All Seasons, starring Paul Scofield. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but you should. And why? Because partly it shows you the kind of great movie that Hollywood once knew how to make. I don't believe Hollywood today could make that kind of movie. But there was once a Hollywood that commanded not just respect, but even awe. And that Hollywood, I'm sorry to say, is now perhaps gone forever. I've seen Man for All Seasons, well, probably 5 times. And I can recite whole sections from it. There was a famous scene where Cromwell, the kind of diabolical bureaucrat who wants to frame Thomas More, brings in Roper, this kind of young stooge that he wants to give false testimony against Thomas More. And he goes, I know a man who wants to change his woman. He goes, normally a matter of small importance, but in this case the man happens to be our liege Lord Henry VIII of that name. And he goes on to say that if a powerful man like that wants to change his woman, he's going to, and our job as bureaucrats, says Cromwell, is just to minimize the inconvenience. Thomas More was a big inconvenience, and that's why they put him in the Tower of London. Now, this brings me to what I want to talk about, which is Thomas More's writings in the Tower. First of all, he writes it's called a Dialogue of Comfort Against Tribulation. Now, this is a very interesting case where words in Thomas More's time don't mean what they mean today. Comfort in those days didn't mean ease or peace or taking it easy. No, comfort actually meant struggle. Comfort meant to strengthen, to work against. So a dialogue of comfort against tribulation means how do you toughen yourself up against the execution that is to come. And Thomas More writes this beautiful dialogue about a young man who has been captured by the infidel Turks and has been, and society is unraveling around him. And you can kind of see the parallel between this Christian man imprisoned by the Turks and what is Thomas More slyly implying? Well, he's implying that the infidels today, in his day, is actually the king himself and his court, that King Henry VIII is acting, in a sense, like a Turk and using, if you will, false charges against him. More also writes a beautiful meditation called On the Sadness of Christ. And you can see here how More is thinking about Christ at Gethsemane, the sadness of Christ, and equating, if you will, or learning from Christ's passion. Again, the word passion here doesn't mean passion like desire, but rather passion understood more as suffering. Thomas More writes a beautiful letter to his young daughter, Meg, who's obviously going to be facing the prospect of life without her dad. And he says to her, farewell, my dear child, and pray for me. And also he consoles his wife. And then, and this to me is the most remarkable thing, Thomas More writes a letter to his persecutors, the very people who put him in the tower, the very people who have arranged for his execution. And he says, quote, to them, though we disagree in this life, disagree, what a euphemistic way of putting it. Though we disagree in this life, I hope we will nevertheless agree in another life in perfect charity. It's almost like Thomas More is saying to these bad guys who have rigged a trial against him, he's saying, hey, we have a disagreement, but you know what? Maybe we just didn't figure it all out. Maybe in another life we can sit back down and work out this in a reasonable way. What a way to think and what a way to talk. And then he goes on to say this, I verily trust and shall therefore right heartily pray. Thomas More is going to pray for what? That although your lordships have now here in earth been judges to my condemnation, we may yet hereafter in heaven merrily all meet together. Wow. Thomas More is saying that he doesn't wish that his persecutors and tormentors pay for their sins. He doesn't want them to be in hell. In fact, he's going to pray that they not only are in heaven. I mean, you think it's one thing to say, okay, listen, I hope you repent and get to heaven, but, frankly, I don't want to see you there. He goes, no, I hope that not only will I see you there, but we'll be able to sit down and laugh and kind of have a drink, spiritually speaking, perhaps, and kind of make merry together. So this, I think, is the true spirit of Christian charity. I confess I don't always have it. I aspire to it. But sometimes when I think of the little petty tormentors who went after me, it's very hard for me to think in Thomas Moreian terms about them. So I constantly want to keep these kinds of writings in view because they are a true embodiment of Christ's instruction to us to, like him, love our enemies and do good to those who hate you.